Support from family and loved ones is extremely important during the teenage years, as the transition to adulthood is often accompanied by numerous difficulties and challenges. Adults who have already gone through this path know how to act in difficult situations. However, if a young person tries to cope with everything alone, without the help and advice of elders, there is a high risk of making a fatal mistake. And the price of this mistake can be too high, the loss of freedom or even life. Cassidy Goodson was born in 1997. Her childhood was spent in an atmosphere of love and care, in the cozy suburb of the small town of Lakeland, Florida, USA. The population of Lakeland was approximately 100,000 inhabitants. Cassidy was described as a girl with extraordinary potential, sociable and successful in softball. Her parents worked tirelessly to provide the family with everything they needed, and their main priority always remained the well-being of their children. Cassidy had a sister and a brother, and close, trusting relationships were formed between all family members. During her school years, the girl had no problems, neither with her parents nor with the law. She did not use drugs, did not smoke, actively played sports and demonstrated excellent academic results. Cassidy helped her mother with household chores, and every Sunday the whole family went to church. Everyone who knew this girl was convinced that a brilliant future awaited her. Cassidy herself enjoyed studying and dreamed of a successful career. Starting her own family was also part of her plans, but somewhat later, when she was firmly on her feet. But in the spring of 2012, strange changes occurred in the life of the 14-year-old teenager. Her brother and sister noticed that Cassidy's behavior had become unusual, not like before. First of all, she noticeably gained weight. However, her mother believed that this was normal and associated with the hormonal restructuring of the body during adolescence. The girl's clothing preferences also changed, now she preferred baggy clothes that hid her figure. It seemed that Cassidy was very worried about the changes in her body, so she tried to mask them with shapeless clothes. Against this background, some quickly suspected that the girl was pregnant. These rumors began to spread through the school. Cassidy even stopped changing before physical education classes in the presence of classmates. But despite all the hints and guesses, she did not confess her condition even to her closest friends and sister. Meanwhile, Cassidy did end up in a delicate condition, although she was only 14. The thought of her family's reaction to this news caused the girl real panic, caused unbearable anxiety. So she decided to hide the pregnancy from her parents and everyone around her. Gradually, her stomach began to grow, and Cassidy gained even more weight. But she stubbornly remained silent. She just wore baggy clothes, wrapped herself in blankets and shawls so that none of the household members would notice her round belly, walked around wrapped in a scarf. Once a smiling and sociable schoolgirl, now Cassidy spent almost all her time alone in her room, avoiding communication. She even stopped going to church on Sundays, so as not to attract the attention of acquaintances once again. Cassidy tried not to leave the house at all at a time when someone could see her. Of course, Cassidy's mother and sister could not help but notice the dramatic changes in Cassidy's behavior. One day, her mother even dared to directly ask her daughter about a possible pregnancy, when the corresponding rumors reached her from her older daughter. But Cassidy immediately rejected all assumptions. The mother insisted on a pregnancy test to dispel any doubts. Although deep down, she simply could not believe that her little girl was capable of hiding such a thing. Mom bought several tests, and Cassidy agreed to do them. The woman trusted her daughter so much that she wasn't even present during the procedure. And this played into the girl's hands. She easily managed to deceive everyone and convince them that she was not pregnant. This gullibility of the mother became a fatal mistake. She once again discussed all the risks with her daughter, but Cassidy assured that she did not need lectures on contraception, because she did not have sexual relations at all and was not dating any boys. The mother once again believed her daughter. Moreover, she herself washed Cassidy's clothes every week and was sure that she was closely monitoring her menstrual cycle. Around the same time, even the father paid attention to his daughter's uncharacteristic behavior. Once he saw her scurrying around the house wrapped in scarves and shawls, and the man also had reasonable suspicions. He tried to talk to Cassidy, like the other family members. But the girl again decisively rejected all questions and hints. The brother and sister also guessed about the pregnancy. They repeatedly asked Cassidy direct questions, especially after the spread of rumors at school. The sister doubted that Cassidy had honestly passed the test, and even discussed this with the rest of the family. Talk about the girl's condition even reached the grandparents, but they also failed to get the granddaughter to talk. Cassidy only repeated to them that she had gained a little weight due to puberty, and now she was very worried about her appearance due to being overweight. And the older relatives believed this. By the middle of summer, Cassidy's belly had grown so much that it was simply impossible to hide it with baggy clothes. Almost all the time, the girl walked wrapped in scarves and shawls, but continued to insist that she was not pregnant. Cassidy ignored all attempts by loved ones to get through to her, evaded direct answers, and sometimes even was rude. Eventually, the parents realized that they would not be able to get through to their daughter, and simply calmed down. They continued to live their usual life, not even suspecting what a tragedy this could lead to. Of course, it was impossible to hide such a thing endlessly, because the due date was inexorably approaching. And it all ended in a real catastrophe. On September 19, 2012, Cassidy's mother entered the bathroom after her daughter had been taking a shower for a very long time. And she noticed traces of blood on the toilet and near it. The alarmed woman immediately suspected something was wrong and hurried to her daughter's room. There she found an emaciated, pale and exhausted girl, who, however, still refused to say what had happened. Cassidy tried to pretend that everything was fine. But after the discovery of blood, the mother firmly decided to find out the truth. She took her daughter to the medical center. In the admissions department, the mother reported that the girl had probably had a miscarriage. She insisted on an examination in order to finally find out what the matter was. The schoolgirl had to confess to the doctors, because the facts were too obvious. So she confirmed that she had indeed had a miscarriage. No one ever found out the exact gestational age, so the mother could not say anything for certain and simply believed her daughter's words. According to Cassidy's version, everything happened when she was sitting on the toilet. The fetus suddenly came out. She didn't even have time to come to her senses about what was happening. And she supposedly accidentally flushed it down the sewer, and only then realized what had actually happened. Frightened, the girl did not tell her mother about the incident. And God only knows how it would have ended if the woman had not seen the bloody traces. This story sounded quite plausible, except that the suspicious abrasions in the perineal area of the young patient were surprising. But the doctors had no reason to doubt. They provided the girl with all the necessary help, treated the wounds and let her go home to recuperate. The mother and daughter returned to their home, agreeing not to disclose what had happened. The woman surrounded Cassidy with care and support. On September 22, 2012, the mother smelled a strange unpleasant odor in her daughter's room. Cassidy herself was not at home, so the woman decided to clean up, assuming that her daughter had simply forgotten to throw out some food scraps. Of course, she wanted to find the source of this disgusting stench and get rid of it as soon as possible. Not even suspecting what a terrible discovery she would come across. In the corner there was a basket for dirty laundry, which the mother began to sort through. And almost immediately she realized that this was where the unbearable stench was coming from. Sorting through the things at the bottom of the basket, the woman came across a box in which there was a plastic bag. Opening it, she saw the lifeless body of a newborn child. At 7:30 p.m. on September 22, the stunned and horrified 42-year-old woman contacted law enforcement to report the gruesome find. That same evening, police officers arrived at the Hudson home and took 14-year-old Cassidy to the station for questioning. Without much resistance, the schoolgirl admitted that there had actually been no miscarriage. She gave birth to a child and hid the baby's body from everyone. As the girl told, on that fatal day, her labor began when her water broke. But Cassidy managed to disguise it. She gathered the bedding soaked with amniotic fluid and headed to the bathroom. There, the schoolgirl turned on the shower to drown out all extraneous sounds. Clenching a towel in her teeth to contain her screams of pain, she sat down on the toilet. Cassidy used scissors to pull the baby out. When the terrible process was over, the girl took a clean towel and wiped all traces of blood in the bathroom. In the hands of the exhausted mother lay a bleeding, breathing baby. Cassidy understood that the baby was alive, and his cries could betray her secret. So she decided to get rid of the child. The schoolgirl strangled the newborn boy, put his body in a plastic bag and hid it in a shoebox. And then she placed the terrible find in a basket with dirty linen in her room. It is striking that Cassidy managed to carry out this terrible procedure quickly and imperceptibly to other family members who were at home at that time. Investigators tried to find out all the details in order to properly qualify this crime. The girl did not deny anything and agreed to recreate the events of that day in detail. On camera, Cassidy demonstrated all her actions with the help of a Santa Claus doll. She said that when the baby was in her hands, it did not open its eyes. But the girl felt it breathing. In a panic, she grabbed the boy by the neck and squeezed with all her might. According to the young mother, she was convinced that the child would not survive anyway. The murder took place when the newborn was still connected to the mother by the umbilical cord. Then Cassidy cut the umbilical cord, washed herself and wiped the baby's body. She wrapped it in a plastic bag and hid it in a box of dirty laundry. The girl did not know how to properly get rid of the terrible burden, so she did not even throw it away. Only an autopsy could confirm or refute the girl's testimony. The forensic expert found that the child was born full-term and healthy. The boy was quite large, about 4 kilograms in weight, while the mother herself weighed just over 40 kilograms. This data contradicted Cassidy's words about premature birth. The child had every chance to survive if not for the cruel actions of the mother. The examination confirmed that the cause of death of the baby was strangulation. Numerous injuries were also found on the body. In particular, a traumatic brain injury from a blow with a blunt object to the head. According to the forensic expert, this happened as a result of a fall immediately after birth. But despite the severity, this injury was not fatal. The most striking were the torn wounds on the tiny body inflicted with scissors. The girl used them as a surgical tool to pull the baby out of the womb. Detectives were puzzled by the fact that Cassidy left the baby's body in her room. It seemed that she was not even going to get rid of it, although the smell of decomposition was becoming unbearable. In the end, it was the stench that attracted the mother's attention. Psychologists suggested that in this way the girl subconsciously wanted to be exposed. Perhaps deep down she longed to be justly punished for her terrible sin. It is worth noting that Cassidy never admitted who she got pregnant from, despite all the efforts of the investigators. They suggested that the pregnancy could have been the result of another crime, such as the rape of a minor. But the girl insisted that she hid her condition from her family, fearing that it would ruin her relationship with her parents. She did not want to disappoint them, she knew about their disapproval. According to Cassidy, she did not share her secret with anyone, because from the very beginning she planned to give birth to a child and get rid of it. Of course, this indicated the intentionality of her act. After these confessions, the schoolgirl was arrested and taken to a juvenile correctional facility in the county. Law enforcement officers qualified her actions as premeditated murder in the first degree. The charge of child abuse under aggravating circumstances was also considered, again, in the first degree. The police believed that the enormity of what was done was sufficient grounds to try the young criminal as an adult. But the girl's relatives insisted on mitigating the sentence. They knew her as a smart girl who had never shown a propensity for cruelty. The parents argued that their daughter was simply too young and immature to fully understand the consequences of her terrible actions. According to the laws of the state of Florida, an adult found guilty of first-degree murder can receive the maximum punishment, life imprisonment without the right to parole or the death penalty. However, Cassidy could not be sentenced to the highest measure of punishment due to her minor age. Shortly before this incident, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a ruling that recognized mandatory life imprisonment without the right to parole for juvenile offenders as unconstitutional. So the girl's lawyer had a hard time. He struggled both with the system and with the enraged local community. The residents of Lakeland learned all the terrible details of the crime and demanded the most severe punishment. Cassidy's parents managed to hire a qualified defender. He achieved a plea bargain. The girl pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter. An extremely emotional atmosphere prevailed at the hearings. The Hudson family supported Cassidy. Everyone cried, realizing that one crime could ruin many lives. Even before the start of the trial, the defendant's mother was summoned for questioning. The woman denied knowing about her daughter's pregnancy. She recounted in detail how she first suspected something was wrong, but then simply took Cassidy at her word when she showed negative pregnancy tests. The mother decided that the girl was just gaining weight, and explained this by hormonal changes characteristic of adolescence. The woman assured, if she had known about her daughter's delicate condition, she would have certainly prevented the tragedy. She would have supported Cassidy and provided her with proper care during pregnancy and childbirth. However, no one from the girl's inner circle was subsequently held responsible for concealing this fact. On the video recording of the interrogation shown to the jury, Cassidy confessed to the murder of her newborn son. She repeated that immediately after birth, she hoped for his death. But realizing that the child was alive and breathing, the schoolgirl simply squeezed the little neck with her hands. She wanted to get rid of the problem as soon as possible in order to avoid trouble. According to her, it took about a minute to strangle the baby. Announcing the verdict, the judge emphasized that the defendant had never had problems with the law before. The likelihood that she posed a danger to society was assessed as minimal. In the opinion of the servant of Themis, Cassidy Goodson simply turned out to be insufficiently mature for such a responsible step as motherhood. At the same time, the girl was quite an adult to answer for her cruel crime. The judge expressed the hope that Cassidy would never again find herself in the dock because of another offense. The prosecutor and the lawyer agreed that the girl deserved a second chance. It was decided to send her to undergo a special program at the Hillsborough Girls Academy. Leaving the courtroom, Cassidy wiped away tears with the sleeve of her prison clothes. In just a few months, she had to appear in court again so that the commission could determine her future fate. The girl was sentenced to 1.5 years in prison, with the warning that if she returned to the criminal path, she would not receive another opportunity to correct herself. After release, Cassidy will be under strict supervision and will have to strictly comply with the established rules. Even for the slightest violation, she faces a new imprisonment, but for 15 years and under an adult article. Special attention during the investigation was given to establishing the identity of the child's father. Detectives managed to find out that it was another underage boy who did not even suspect the pregnancy of his ex-girlfriend. His specific name was never named in order to protect him from publicity in this high-profile case. Fierce arguments and debates were just beginning, because the Cassidy Goodson case had shaken the whole country. It was talked about in the local and national press. It seemed that everyone was eager to express their opinion about the incident. The girl's lawyer skillfully used this, referring to the work of famous professors in the field of psychology and psychiatry. In particular, one study analyzed in detail numerous similar cases. The authors found a pattern: girls are most afraid to reveal the fact of pregnancy to their mother. Interestingly, the vast majority of such crimes are committed by girls from low-income families who fear condemnation from their parents. However, there were also other views. Some experts claim that fathers usually take a stricter position on such issues. In any case, this delicate topic raised questions about the role of the Hudson family and their possible contribution to the death of the boy. Girls often lose the ability to confess to their loved ones, afraid of ruining relationships. Cassidy herself repeatedly emphasized this. Even in the face of irrefutable evidence, she stubbornly stuck to her version and openly lied. For many, this story became especially painful precisely because of such nuances. Experts in the field of psychiatry were divided into two camps. Some sympathized with Cassidy and considered her family partly involved in the tragedy. Others placed the blame solely on the girl. All this caused numerous discussions during which the results of various studies were raised and analyzed. For example, one paper stated that out of 9 girls who committed similar crimes, 7 were favorites of their father or even replaced their mother for him. Despite the absence of obvious mental health problems, in everyday life these girls played a simplified role of a wife in everyday terms. Such a mixing of roles caused dangerous changes in behavior and ultimately led to the murder of newborns. At the same time, these young criminals usually studied well, often played sports and were even popular at school. Many of these signs coincided with the image of Cassidy Goodson. Mixing roles provoked a kind of jealousy towards intimacy with another person. All this could cause a distortion of perception, against which one's own baby was viewed as something alien, hostile, which must be gotten rid of. Often, such teenage girls dreamed of a stillbirth as the easiest way to avoid responsibility. Young mothers even convinced themselves that the child was born dead, although in fact it was alive and healthy. After that, they calmly got rid of the body and continued to live their usual lives. The situation could be complicated by self-isolation from loved ones, which was also observed in the case of Cassidy. By refusing to discuss the problem with relatives, the girl drove herself into a dead end. Her act caused controversy, including on the topic of abortion. It would seem that in a particular case, this was an obvious solution to the situation. However, it is not easy to condemn a 14-year-old schoolgirl, because she is too young to fully understand the concepts of good and evil. The incident was lively discussed on social networks and in the media. The story of Cassidy Goodson was used as an argument in favor of the possibility of terminating a pregnancy at such an early age in order to avoid similar problems. Many were also surprised why, in the described situation, the burden of making difficult decisions fell entirely on the shoulders of a minor girl. Despite the parents' attempts to understand what was happening, the public was of the opinion that they did not do anything to prevent the terrible murder. Questions arose as to how one could fail to notice that their daughter's belly was growing, that she was behaving strangely. Why was Cassidy so easily believed, and the subsequent increase in volume simply ignored? Even the closest relatives admitted that the girl's behavior was becoming more and more atypical. Usually this is noticed by relatives, they pay attention to changes. But in the case of Cassidy, it seemed that everyone simply did not care. Those not indifferent to the girl's fate were struck by the fact that it took her mother finding bloody traces in the bathroom to finally understand the obvious. Why didn't anyone take Cassidy to the medical center before that? This question remained unanswered. Against this background, voices were occasionally heard of those who tried to shift the blame for the crime from Cassidy herself to her parents. Some believed that the teenage girl simply did not receive enough attention from her immediate environment. This could also be the real reason for her desire to keep the pregnancy a secret. The society was also divided into two camps on this issue. Many were especially shocked by the details about the use of scissors. According to doctors, Cassidy used them to cut herself. The girl cut the umbilical cord on her own, picked up the still-living baby, trying to pull it out of the womb as quickly as possible. She used ordinary office supplies as a surgical tool. Of course, Cassidy experienced unbearable pain in the process. But in order to somehow cope with it, she simply clenched a piece of a towel in her teeth. It remained unclear what exactly pushed the girl to this step, her mental state or emotional experiences. Or maybe she was so afraid of what her parents would do to her. What made young Cassidy so terrified that she was ready to endure any torture, if only her mother and father would not find out anything? Many people quite rightly asked what was really going on within the walls of the Hudson house, if a 14-year-old girl decided to take such a desperate step. These questions also haunted the investigators. Therefore, they conducted a thorough investigation. However, suspicions of cruel treatment of their daughter by her parents were never confirmed. No traces of beatings or bruises were found on Cassidy's body. The other children in the family denied any physical violence by their mother or father. After serving a year and a half in a correctional center for juvenile girls, Cassidy was released. She successfully completed the rehabilitation program for young offenders. No manifestations of aggression were observed in her. The risk of reoffending was assessed as minimal. The commission decided that the girl could return to society. A difficult period of post-penitentiary adaptation began. The community desperately opposed Cassidy's return. The girl lost all her friends, threats were sent to her address, she was afraid to go out into the street once again. Cassidy returned to her room, which her parents had not touched since the moment of her arrest. Here everything remained as it was, even a bottle of tanning lotion that the girl used at the age of 14. The hardest thing was to look into the eyes of loved ones, but they sincerely wanted to help. When problems began with Cassidy's rejection by others, she repeatedly admitted that she was hated and even persecuted. The girl understood that she was living in a lie, and did not know when it would end. Recalling the traumatic experience and the terrible act, Cassidy abandoned the idea of ever becoming a mother. She got married. In 2017, the girl gave birth to her first daughter, who was named Mia. And 2 years later, Samaya was born. After the birth of her second girl, Cassidy published a post on social networks where she admitted that she really wants to have a boy. These events were not only happy moments in Cassidy's life, but also evidence of her desire to fight. On her page, she wrote that people do not want her to have children at all. When asked why, the girl answered with a smiley face. Cassidy said that many people cannot forgive her for the murder of the baby, that she has a lot of haters. Many people wrote about their desire for the girl to remain behind bars for the rest of her life, because they do not want to live next to a child murderer. On social networks, Cassidy published numerous photos in which she appears as a loving mother and a young woman trying to build her happiness and family. However, sometimes sad notes also slipped through. It seemed that over the years, realizing the full horror of what she had done, Cassidy herself could not forgive herself for the death of her firstborn. In fact, the boy was not even named. Cassidy did not even think about what to call him, planning to get rid of the baby from the very beginning. Therefore, in the case of the murder of a newborn, he appeared simply as Baby Hudson. Please write your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. For those who are new here, subscribing is the best way to stay updated on future content. Also give a like please. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Thank you for your support during this difficult time. Until next time, friends.